Welcome, everybody, to another edition of All In with Art Stapleton, a New York Giants podcast brought to you by NorthJersey.com and The Record. I am your host, Art Stapleton, and we've gone from the hills of West Virginia, the parking lots of East Rutherford, to now back to the palatial backyard here at my home base for All In, and we are here for preseason week 1. We'll preview tomorrow what to expect at MetLife, who to watch out for. Couple hot topics this week as the Giants return home to New Jersey for training camp. I know we touched on that in our last episode of All In, but we have some stuff to go about on that front. And then we'll get you ready for the game tomorrow. So hopefully either you're listening or watching this on Friday, which is when we're recording, or on Saturday morning, 1 o'clock start, Minnesota Vikings and the New York Giants, preseason game 1 of 3. The first of 2 in MetLife in the preseason for the Giants, but this is their only home preseason game. They will play at Miami next weekend, and then they will play at the Jets in week 3 of the preseason. So I would expect a pretty good crowd tomorrow for a preseason game for a variety of reasons, but we can get into that as well, of who will be the headliner. Let's talk John Harbaugh. I know I touched base with you. Paul and I did a show on Tuesday, or actually was it Monday or Tuesday? I'm trying to remember. I can't get my days straight since coming back from West Virginia. But we've had a couple days more of practice of Harbaugh and training camp. A lot of the same. Interesting about Harbaugh is the attention to detail and the length of the practices. You know, the last couple were scheduled for 2.5 hours, and he uses every minute that he could possibly use for anything that he can possibly come up with. Wednesday, they did an overtime period where it was the first team and second team offense against the first team and second team defense. They ended up kicking the ball back and forth, punting it back and forth with Jordan Stout, and then that overtime session ends when Cam Scatterbo and Isaiah Likely convince Harbaugh to send Dominic Zvada out to kick a 62-yard field goal. He nails it. So a great finish to that practice, 7 of 7 on Wednesday for Zvada. Overall, he's 52 of 56 in the summer, and that's including missing the first 2 of his 3 field goals down in West Virginia at the Greenbrier. So Zavada has really edged ahead again of Ben Sauls. It's not that Ben Sauls has done a bad job this summer. He's actually kicked a lot better this summer than he did in the spring. But at this point, Zavada would have my vote when we do the next 53-man roster. It'll stay that way, that he would be the kicker for the Giants. Now, could Harbaugh come up with a curveball if either one of these kickers or both don't perform in the preseason? That's a possibility. I know a lot of people have brought up Justin Tucker, and I've mentioned this before. Let's just take Tucker's off-the-field issues aside, and whatever you want to buy in and not buy into what went on with him. The reality is it seemed like he hit a wall in Baltimore, and that was really a reason why the Ravens moved beyond him and moved to a rookie last year. So I'm not convinced that if the Giants look on the market for a veteran kicker, if either one of these 2 rookies or second-year pro in Sauls can't do the job, I don't think it's going to Justin Tucker. I could be surprised, but my guess is that ship has sailed for John Harbaugh, Chris Horton, who's the special teams coordinator. But we'll see. You know, sometimes when you're in times of desperation, you revert back to what you know best. So let's see if that becomes an issue. But right now, I don't see any reason why the Giants would not go with one of the 2 kickers they currently have on the roster. And we'll see if it plays out. And that'll be something that plays out starting tomorrow or Saturday against the Vikings. The other thing from Harbaugh's practice I thought was interesting yesterday is that, you know, I think back to Joe Judge when, you know, they went into the stadium to practice the up in the booth and the communication between the sideline and the coaches in the booth and getting comfortable and where guys would be comfortable, how the players would react. Harbaugh had a walkthrough yesterday of pregame introductions, pregame stretch, how he wants to do the pregame routine for the Giants for when they get on the field. And when you think about it, when you have a lot of young players and you also have a new team, this is Harbaugh, attention to detail. He wants the pregame warm-ups exactly how he wants them. And he has 18 years of head coach experience about seeing what works in the pregame, how he gets his players ready, and that's kind of what he wants. So it was kind of weird to see the last, 15 minutes of practice yesterday, just the Giants going through pregame warm-ups, and they were really just standing in groups. They were coming out in position groups, who came on the field when, all these things that we take for granted. Harbaugh was not going to take it for granted, that he was going to run through how he wants it to look on Saturday. So keep an eye out on that. Remember, if somebody screws up, they practiced this yesterday and went over it. What they will do is, Harbaugh said, they will have a walkthrough and include what they think Minnesota likes to do. They will not game plan for Minnesota, but the way they'll do the preseason, they will not game plan for any of the three opponents. That's a little different. Under Brian Daboll, they game plan for the opponent in the third preseason game. Harbaugh said they will go through in a walkthrough setting what they think they're going to get from Minnesota in a scout team or a look team, but it will not be a dig deep and prepare for Minnesota, especially not in week one. All right, so yesterday, Malik Neighbors comes out in a red jersey, number 1, red cleats. Definitely looks like he's coming out for a fashion statement. It was not a fashion statement. I know there's been debate amongst the beat. We were having it yesterday about whether this was a significant step forward for Malik Neighbors or not. I think it was, just because I think it sets him up for Monday and Tuesday to have an opportunity to maybe be in live drills. I don't know necessarily about an 11-on-11, but I've been saying it. I would think 7-on-7, he gets out there in live drills on Monday after doing what he did. Now, the irony of him wearing a non-contact jersey is the fact that he got in a little dust-up, if you will, with wide receivers coach Chad Hall. They were running through some one-on-one on the sideline. Hall was mirroring a cornerback, and he stepped one way. He thought Malik was going to step the other way. Malik stepped into him and caught Chad Hall with the crown of his helmet, busted him up pretty good, had to get stitches on the sideline. So that's obviously something that they didn't want, but Malik was fine and Chad Hall was fine. And good guy voting, anyone? I know we don't usually give the good guy award on the beat to an assistant coach, but Chad Hall not only took stitches during practice, but he came to his media availability afterwards. Still blood here, didn't do anything to kind of clean himself up, and just came and did the media availability. So tip of the cap to Chad Hall for his performance yesterday on the Giants coaching staff. All right, everybody wants to know, starters, Jackson Dart, who's playing, who isn't. I think the only starter, quote-unquote, that you won't see, and that's on the offense, is Malik Neighbors. I think you're going to see everybody at least a little bit. And Harbaugh talked about it yesterday. He didn't say it, but it's a slippery slope. It's a fine line, whatever cliche you want to use. You want to play your starters. You don't want to just go blank throughout the entire preseason. And Harbaugh said throughout his years, he's done it a bunch of different ways. In Baltimore in recent years, they haven't played any starters in the preseason. But especially on the offense, this is a new system. You have a second-year quarterback. Do you really want to say Jackson Dart is exactly where he needs to be for the start of the season? No. Jackson Dart wouldn't even tell you that. So I think you're going to see a little bit of Jackson Dart. I think you will see Cam Scatterboo. I think you'll see the offensive line except for JMS. And I think they'll play a little bit. On the defensive side of the ball, maybe Brian Burns doesn't play. Maybe it's Abdul Carter and Kayvon Thibodeau starting. But for the most part, I think you're probably going to see everybody who's healthy enough to play at least a little bit. Will you see Paulson Adebo? No, I don't expect that. He's dealing with a hamstring, and he's obviously, over the next couple of weeks, needs to bring his best in order to make this team, and the Giants want to see it. Now, a lot has been questioned about Adebo. Let's see how he comes back from this issue, if he really wants to be here and wants to earn that spot. So we'll get to some of the players to watch in a little bit, but that's kind of the layout of who I think is going to play. I think if they're healthy and they practiced full yesterday, I think there's a chance that they will play. I think you'll see Jackson Dart, then you'll see Jameis Winston, then you'll see Brandon Allen. And what John Harbaugh said yesterday is, look, if we play Dart, now we're going to want to play other guys because we're going to want to protect him. You're not going to want to put Jackson Dart out there with the second-team offensive line against the Vikings because it's not a controlled situation. They can't control what Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings are going to do. Personnel, whether it's first team, second team, whatever, Brian Flores is going to bring the house, and you do not want Jackson Dart having to play against a third-string linebacker from Minnesota who's trying to make the team, trying to make an impression, trying to get noticed, and you don't have your best blocking up front for Jackson Dart. So that is certainly a consideration. So if they start peeling back the layers and say they're not going to play Andrew Thomas and they're not going to play Jermaine Illuminor and they don't want to play John Runyon, now all of a sudden you have to really question whether or not they're going to play Jackson Dart. That's why I think that first-team offensive line will play. It's always risk. It's always a risk for an injury. You don't want that, but you also need to get ready for the season. And so far, they've withstood 15 days of grueling John Harbaugh training camp, going out and playing a couple series on Saturday afternoon on what should be a beautiful day at MetLife Stadium. Should be able to be handled. So that's where they're at from that. All right, who's going to be the biggest story? Well, right now, the biggest story is Odell Beckham Jr. We know OBJ is going to be playing, and I don't think anyone, as I said the other day, and I've said several times on this show, I don't think anyone would have expected Odell to be able to take every snap assigned to him in this training camp. I think they would have expected him to take days off, to pull back a little bit, maybe only do individual drills. Odell has done everything, and he's shown more juice than what people anticipated. That being said, he has not gotten many catches in practice. They're always spreading the ball around. You don't know if it's an issue where they think he's not a part of the offense or if they just see what they need to see on tape. It's got to be frustrating for the player. You're running around, you're running all these routes, you see the tape and you see that you're open, and then you're not getting the football. Well, that's practice. Now it's a game. And I wouldn't expect Jackson Dart to be with Odell long, if at all, on Saturday. But Jameis Winston, and we all know Jameis Winston, he's very aware of things. It would not surprise me to see Jameis Winston force some targets to OBJ. Just because, the Giants understand it. They understand where Odell is. And he's caught between two different worlds, as the column I wrote for NorthJersey.com said this morning. He's got the nostalgia and the sentimentality for what he's accomplished and the resume. And you've got teammates talking about how they remember when they were 12 watching Odell make the catch. So the fact that they're teammates with him now is amazing. But you also have the aspect of, Odell, yes, he's happy to be here, but he's not satisfied. He wants to go out and earn a spot on this team, and he knows he has to go out and earn a spot on this team. So this is the opportunity, yet another opportunity to show, you know what, you guys see me getting open, but now I'm going to make plays. And you never know in a preseason game how those plays go. They can go up and down. Something happens on a play. He doesn't get a pass, doesn't get this, doesn't get that. But I would imagine the first time back in MetLife Stadium since December of 2018, when the Giants upset the Bears in overtime, Odell had a touchdown catch from Eli Manning. He also had a touchdown pass to Russell Shepard. They end up winning that game on a field goal in OT. That's the last time Odell has been in a Giants uniform in MetLife Stadium. Yes, he came back as a member of the Browns the following year, scored against the Jets in a game I was at, but this has special meaning. His son Zaiden, 4 years old, his mom Heather were at practice yesterday for the first time all summer. Odell had his son at Giants practice, which obviously is a significant change for him to have him there. You can see teammates running over at one point early in practice, see that red jersey run over, and it's Malik Neighbors and Odell Beckham Jr. saying hi to Zaiden behind the fence on the patio over at the facility. It's a cool story. Now you hope for the meat of the story. You hope that Odell Beckham Jr. can produce and make some plays and convince people that he's not just here to get the crowd cheering and to excite fans and to be a sounding board for younger players. I think he wants to be a part of this team. I think this team wants him to be a part of this team. And now you've got that 2.5 week stretch going into the final weekend of August as to what Odell can do to make this team. Now, I've thrown it out there. It would not surprise me that if Odell does get cut on cut day in a numbers game, that he wouldn't. I think he would come back to go on the practice squad because of the way the practice squad is structured, because of John Harbaugh, because of this team, these teammates. But again, a lot can happen over the next couple weeks. I think the receivers that are healthy are going to make this team. And that may sound foolish, but that's where they're all at. You've got Odell. You've got Dalen Cambry. You've got Braxton Berrios. You've got Juju Smith-Schuster, who has not been healthy this summer. I think Darius Slayton is making the team regardless. I think, obviously, Malik Neighbors and Malachi Fields. Everybody else, Darnell Mooney, Calvin Austin, all of these guys, all it takes is an injury, a groin, a hamstring, not even a serious one, that puts in jeopardy their opportunity to claim, without a doubt, a 53-man roster spot. That's how close and how they've worked these wide receivers this summer. So keep an eye on Odell tomorrow. Keep an eye on Dalen Cambry. I think those two are probably going to be the big receivers here going into preseason game number 1. I go to my list. All right, I wanted to talk about this one. I tweeted last night when Terrion Arnold, who visited the Giants on Wednesday, he visited 4 teams: Houston, Seattle, New Orleans, and the Giants. Now you have 2 Super Bowl contenders, and then you have New Orleans and Giants, up-and-coming teams, maybe more of an opportunity. Arnold decides to sign with Seattle. Look, when push comes to shove, you're signing with the defending Super Bowl champions. You're going to play opposite Devin Witherspoon. That's probably the best opportunity for Terrion Arnold to get his stock back up. But listening to John Harbaugh on Wednesday after the practice, when he was asked about why even bring Terrion Arnold with the charges that he's facing off the field for that incident down in Florida, the legal situation is going to be pending. It's going to play itself out. Why even do that? And Harbaugh said, we're going to be aggressive, and I sensed a little bit of, do I say desperation? They look at the cornerback situation, and I've told you all offseason, the Giants were pretty confident with where their cornerback situation was. They can't be confident right now with what Paulson Adebo has shown, knowing that you're then counting on a rookie in Colton Hood. You're counting on Tay Banks and a resurgence that, as much as he's been a positive, slow growth this summer, It hasn't been that spike that some people are saying. And then you have Greg Newsome, who, may, for all intents and purposes, kick inside if that's a better fit for them. If our Darius Washington is playing more safety, we'll see what happens with Drew Phillips, who came back to practice on a limited basis on yesterday. So Corey Black is another corner to give an eye on come Saturday. He's gotten some first-team reps. Let's see if he can make a move here. But the name I mentioned in the same tweet about Terrion Arnold signing with Seattle is Christian Gonzalez. Now, I haven't brought it up before this week, really before yesterday. Had a great AMA on the Giants and on the NFC West on Buzzer with Chris Dunn. So check that out. I put it on my link to my X page as well, my X account. Long Q&A. We went back and forth. So a lot of good information on that one. But, the reality is that Christian Gonzalez is in a contract dispute with the Patriots right now. He proved to be a number one corner. He's a top 10 corner with upside. Top 5 corner with upside. That's his ceiling is there. He's only 24 years old. You say to me, well, why would New England trade him? Well, why did the Cowboys trade Micah Parsons? You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know how upset a player is. Christian Gonzalez is out there requesting a new contract, wants a new contract, whether he's saying it specifically or it's his reps behind the scenes. Everybody knows Christian Gonzalez wants a new contract. It's going to pay him upwards of $30 million annual average value of a contract. That's what the Patriots have to do. They could wake up today and decide to sign Christian Gonzalez. So this is not hey, I'm hearing that the Giants are going to. No, that's not what I said. What I said was, if I'm the Giants and I'm John Harbaugh and Joe Schoen, and I sensed a little desperation in Harbaugh's voice the other day, still getting a chance to know him and know his tells and things that he's talking about, I really think that they're a little concerned about this corner group. And why not shoot for the moon? Place a call up to New England. Say, hey, what are you guys doing with the Gonzalez situation? They'll be honest with you. If they're not looking to trade him, or if they say, well, what are you guys considering? What would you offer? I would consider draft picks. Maybe Kayvon Thibodeau comes back into the mix. I don't want to trade Kayvon Thibodeau. I want him to be in this mix with Brian Burns and Abdul Carter. I think that depth really matters. But if you can get a corner like Christian Gonzalez or get a team that's even thinking about it, that changes the complexion on the back end of your defense. So we will see. Do I think Christian Gonzalez will be a Patriot? Yes. Patriots don't have to give him a contract extension. It was like the Dexter Lawrence situation in some ways. There have already been reports. My friend Tom Curran, up covering the Patriots, talked about how Gonzalez is not necessarily worrying about being the highest paid corner this year. He wants it built into the contract for 2027 when the next salary cap jumps and probably jumps to like $320 million when another corner hits the market. And Gonzalez sees him now eclipse him not just by $1 or $2 million, but maybe by $3 or $4 million annual value. That's when Gonzalez is going to look at it, much like Osi Umenyiora did back in the day with Jerry Reese, much like Dexter Lawrence wanted to do with the Giants, is I want to be paid. It was almost like the Patrick Mahomes thing. He signed his contract, and then the Chiefs would bump him up every time someone got paid more than he did in the early stages of the contract extension that Mahomes signed. At least that was the perception. And the reality is he ended up getting raises. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Christian Gonzalez. But I think what happened with Terrion Arnold this week shows me that the Giants are going to explore options. They are going to look and see, is there a corner out there that fits long-term here, like a Christian Gonzalez? Is there a corner that has Denard Wilson ties from Tennessee and Baltimore? Harbaugh obvious ties from Baltimore. Right now I don't have those names. I'm going to dig in a little bit and see if I can find. But I do think with the way Paulson Ademo has shown that he is just not having a great summer, and you're relying on a lot of what ifs. I don't think John Harbaugh wants to rely on what ifs. Like I said, his personality is, we are going to rehearse pregame introductions for a preseason game, pregame warm-ups for a preseason game. That is John Harbaugh. So now all of a sudden you think John Harbaugh is going to go into the season, his first in New York, with a struggling Paulson Adebo. Greg Newsome, who finished the season poorly last year in Jacksonville, has looked pretty good this summer, but that is reality. Colton Hood, a rookie who they want to get up to speed as quickly as possible. They want him to take a starting job. He's played the run extremely well. Right now, he's been up and down technique-wise in coverage, and that's affected him. And you have Tay Banks and Corey Black to an extent. You've now gone down 5 spots. If you're counting on Tay Banks to be one of your starters, you better hope that this reclamation project has come along a lot faster than maybe what people anticipate. So that's where we're at with the corners. That's why I brought up Christian Gonzalez. I do not think that the Patriots are going to trade him, but I also didn't think the Patriots were going to trade Jamie Collins back in the day. Chandler Jones, that was under a different regime, but Mike Vrabel may have gotten a little bit from Bill Belichick, trading guys when you think that maybe they're not going to be happy or not be a future. Now, it's hard to say when you're a 24-year-old corner and you're going to give that away, but no one thought the Browns would trade Myles Garrett to the Rams, or the Rams trading Jared Verse in the same package. Who would have thought that when you look at Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs, that he was traded to the Rams? Things happen out there that sometimes you don't expect. So we'll see. We'll see what happens on the cornerback front, but I think things are going to happen right up until the start of the season, and then maybe even beyond that. All right, let's talk players to watch, and then we'll wrap up this show. Players to watch. Mentioned OBJ. Mentioned JMS not playing. Also, Lucas Patrick has been banged up with his knee. He got, as John Harbaugh called it, old knees. So he got a PRP injection in his knee. He's still trying to get back to where he's feeling healthy. Gutted out a couple practices down in West Virginia. Brian Hudson, 25 years old. He's been a backup. He's been on the practice squad. He's got an opportunity to be with the first team all week. He'll likely be with the first team tomorrow. And moving forward here, John Harbaugh hinted and said, we were thinking about, we wanted to get Hudson some reps. We wanted to see how we can get those reps. But when you had JMS and Lucas Patrick, you make a bigger story and make waves if somehow you're pulling one of those guys out and putting Hudson in. They don't have to do that right now. So I think Hudson has a good chance to kind of prove himself and take hold of this. I'm not saying he's going to Wally Pipp JMS right away, but let's not forget, John Michael Schmitz is in the final year of his rookie contract. So depending on what he's looking for, depending on what Harbaugh is looking for at his center position, this could be a competition before all is said and done. Mentioned the corners, big opportunity for Colton Hood, Tay Banks, Corey Black, because I don't expect Adebo or Newsome to play. Here's one for you. Fan favorite, had a great story down in West Virginia with No, I'm Dante Miller. Turbo Miller, fan of the program, fan of All In. Before he met the media with the New York Giants, take you back a couple of years, he was on with myself and Paul Wood on All In from an oil change place down in South Carolina after he signed with the Giants doing our podcast. If you don't remember and you want to kind of get a picture of how far we've come as a podcast, you can go back and try to find that interview with Turbo. It was 2 seasons ago in the spring. So check that out. But I think Turbo Miller has a great opportunity here. He fits kind of the mold of that third back that not only Matt Nagy liked in Chicago with Tariq Cohen, Khalil Herbert. I think Harbaugh can appreciate backs like that. He had a Keaton Mitchell in Baltimore. You know, that 5'8", 5'9", explosive back out of the backfield, gets a couple opportunities in a game. Here's where Turbo Miller is going to have an opportunity. I thought he made the team last year. Thought they would keep him. They put him on the practice squad. Turbo Miller is easy to root for. He's a guy with an Ivy League degree, went to Columbia, got his degree, went down to South Carolina, was essentially ruled ineligible by the NCAA. So he couldn't do much because he wanted to save another year of eligibility going back to the COVID rules. They ended up saying that he was ineligible to play. So then he tried entering the draft, couldn't enter the draft because it was based on his graduating class. So all sorts of stuff, if you remember, got screwed up with Turbo when he became a Giant. I know there are a lot of people rooting for Turbo Miller. He's the kind of player who is talented enough, could make some plays on Saturday, and all of a sudden we're talking about, can Turbo Miller pass Devin Singletary on the roster, on the depth chart, and push for time in a backfield with Scatterboo and Tyrone Tracy? Now, I don't think he will, but I do think he could force the Giants to take 4 running backs. Remember, Patrick Ricard is a tight end by roster-wise with the Giants. Not that that matters. And then the last couple guys I would say to keep an eye on, everybody's going to be mentioning Evan Neal. Is this his last gasp? Will he get a lot of reps? I'll give you 2 offensive linemen that I'm watching in addition. Well, actually 3. You got to watch Josh Azudu if he plays tackle, if he plays guard. He had a very good preseason last year, Azudu, before ending up on IR, which I know is a point of contention with Azudu last year, that he was frustrated and he thought he made the team. J.C. Davis, 6th-round rookie from Illinois, he's been playing a lot of tackle. I see him as a future guard. He could be someone who replaces John Runyon next year at left guard. I don't think Runyon's going anywhere right now, but J.C. Davis at left tackle, probably after Marcus Bowe. There's been kind of a little talk now in the building. Yesterday, Mike Bloomgren with the media kind of let it out. We've been talking about it for a year and a half now. Will Marcus Bowe end up playing center for the Giants in the NFL at some point? Very unlikely to happen this year, but they tasted it a little bit in OTAs. Right now, they want to do what's best for Bowe, and I think for Bowe, being the swing tackle is a good opportunity for him behind Andrew Thomas and Jermaine Illuminor, and then you see where they're at going into next season. But I'd say J.C. Davis. I'd say Ryan Chernicky is somebody to watch too, just because the Giants brought him as a priority, undrafted free agent, small school guy, but he's looked pretty good this summer in limited opportunities. He's someone else I want to watch in the preseason and see if he can make moves to really push for that possible reserve role on the offensive line. Maybe by midseason, maybe he goes practice squad first, gets called up, that kind of thing. So let's see if he's a developmental player and the type of player that they think they're getting with him. So those are 4 offensive linemen that I would keep an eye on. Hudson is obviously the 5th and most important. Who doesn't want to see CeCe Mauinoa out there? I do. I think he'll be with the first team, and then that'll be it for him if and when they're out there, as I expect them to. So a lot to pack into this show. Appreciate Paul Wood, again, producing at its finest for this podcast. Paul will be in the stands. We'll see if we can convince Paul to come on a post-game pod tomorrow. I'll be from MetLife Stadium. We'll see if Paul can kind of give us a flavor of what it was like in those stands. And like I said, I expect a lot of OBJ chants from young and old, a new generation of fans who only know Odell by what their parents told them about and what they've seen on YouTube and the catch we'll get an opportunity to see Odell tomorrow. Sometimes these stories don't pan out. It would be fun tomorrow if Odell Beckham Jr. can make some plays and get some people excited about what he's doing. And look, this is a game that doesn't count, but for Odell Beckham Jr., every play counts in his bid to stay here and make this team and prove that he can be an impact player for the Giants, wherever you want to slot him in within this offense as far as rep counts and opportunities. So for Paul Wood, I'm Art Stapleton. We'll see you for MetLife tomorrow. Giants, Vikings. Not exactly like the playoff game from 2022. Hopefully from the Giants' perspective, not like the season opener from a couple years ago. But we'll see what the Giants of John Harbaugh look like the first time they step inside that stadium. We'll be there to document it all. So for Paul, I'm Art. We are all in. We appreciate you being all in as well. And we'll catch you tomorrow from MetLife.